Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Jenkins. Thank you for joining us during these daily devotions. Uh, it is a struggle sometimes for us to get them out and get them printed. We have to take them to the church to have them uploaded and then to get them to you. And God has been so faithful to us through these years. We've been able to get it out time and time again. Sometimes we didn't know if we were going to or not. Sometimes we've been in those places where there wasn't any internet signal. I remember we were doing a meeting down in South Florida, and I'd have to drive over to the truck stop every night just to get the program uploaded. And thank God for a good helpmate like Linda Jenkins, who's been there with me the whole time and supports me and strengthens me in this. This week we have been looking at the pits and the prisons that sometimes come in the life of a child of God. I assure you, every Christian is going to have those days when he's in the pits and he can't get out, and in the prison and he doesn't understand why he's there. But it's during those days that God's in the process of forming us into the image that he has us to be. He wants us to be more than what we are. I remember when I was first saved, I was not a smart man. It took me a while to come to an understanding of what grace was, and faith and peace and love, uh, to understand what it meant for God to come in and want to change my life completely. And oh, dear friend, did he ever. But that process has led me to where I am today. The valleys, the prisons, the pits, the mountaintops, all of them have added to me to make me what I am today for his honor and for his glory. Now, some of the principles that we have shared with you these last couple of days, we need to reiterate. First and foremost, when you are in the pit, when you are in the prison, don't demand to understand. The psalmist in Psalms 40 said that I waited patiently for the Lord. I didn't demand for him to explain to me what he was doing. He knew the way that I take. And when, like Job 23:10, he says, when I am tried, I shall come forth as gold. God knows what he's doing. He's been doing it a long time. And if he tarries his coming, he will do it a long time after you and I are gone. So don't demand to understand. The second thing that we shared with you is don't fail to be faithful. In the midst of your prison, in the midst of your pit, don't get bitter. Don't turn to bitterness. Don't get to the place where people question or not whether or not you're even a Christian or not by the way you're acting. And some of you, you know people that have acted badly when they were going through times of trials and crisis and that type of thing. You and I need to strive to continue to be that witness for the glory of God, regardless of what season we find ourselves in. Don't be a fair weather Christian. Serve the Lord at all times. Then I would say this to you. Don't hurry providence. God knows what he's doing. Most of the theologians estimate that Joseph was around 30 years old when he got out of prison. 10 years he had been there. And it probably seemed to Joseph from time to time that God had forgot all about him. He had been faithful to serve the Lord, but now it seems like maybe God just so far away. He learned to wait upon the Lord. Uh, the story is told of Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was a prisoner in a Russian concentration camp, a very vile, wicked place that caused all men to want to escape it. And there was an opportunity for him to escape, and yet he did not feel that that was the will of God for his life. And so while others left, he stayed. And then in 3 days' time, he was set free. You and I sometimes need to don't rush providence. Don't try to help God order our steps. He knows what he's doing, and he will do it for his honor and for his glory. And then I would say this to you. Don't let your dreams disappear. Over in chapter 41 of the book of Genesis and verse number 38, the word of God says here, it says, and Pharaoh said unto his servants, can we find such a one as this, in whom the Spirit of God is? And Pharaoh said to Joseph, for as much as God hath showed thee all of this, there is none so discreet and wise as thou art. Thy shall be over my house, and according unto thy word shall all of my people be ruled. Only in the throne shall I be greater than thee. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, See, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put it upon Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain about his neck. And he made him to ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried before him, and bowed the knee, and he made him ruler over all the land of Egypt. That was his dream. You remember back in chapter 37, the stars and the moon would bow down before him, and the sheaves of the field would bow before him. And Joseph's daddy and his brethren said, You mean the day's going to come, we're going to bow? And they laughed. They laughed. But you see, God had given him that dream. God had put that in his heart. And now he is bringing that to fruition. God's vision came unto young Joseph. He had to go through some testing, just like you will. He had to go through some trials, just like you are. I think of these young preachers that are going out into the ministry. They're going to go through some stuff. I went through some stuff. I pastored a church where I had one deacon and about 35 people when I started. And that was on a big day, 35 on a big day. Most of the time on Sunday night and Wednesday night, we'd have 4 or 5. But I needed that. Desperately, I needed that. I remember going to college, and I remember the test, and I remember one teacher in particular. He's now with the Lord, Mr. Harrison. And someone asked him one time, Mr. Harrison, how come you're so tough on us young preachers? He said, son, when you're striking on flint, you got to strike hard. And he struck hard, but he made an indention in our lives. He helped us to become what God wanted us to be, ministers of the gospel. I think of the other churches that I pastored, and I think of the struggles. I think of the people that God put in my way to knock off the rough edges and to mold and shape me into what he would have me to be. I think about the promotions, and boy, he did. I tell you, when I went to Missouri to pastor First Baptist Church of Summersville, Missouri, God did that. That's the only answer. And then just a few years later, he would move us to Florida. In January of 1985, we would come to Florida. Been here ever since. Yeah, but God did that. He did what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. And he used people that I would have thought he would have never used in my life to bring me to where I am. Why? Because you're going to go through some pits, you're going to go through some prisons, and you're going to go through some mountaintops too. And God's going to be God through all of that. Bow to his wisdom. Bow to his leadership. Bow to his understanding. Be his servant. Trust in him. Wait patiently for him. He will incline his ear to you. He will hear your cry. He will lift you up out of that horrible pit, even out of the miry clay, because he's your Father and he loves you. Until Monday, may the Lord bless and keep you is my prayer.